Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the movie Nemesis 2 Nebula and Nemesis 3 Time Lapse. So I did a review some months ago where I reviewed the first Nemesis movie that starred Oliver Grunner and Nemesis 4 Cry of Angels that starred Sue Price. And now recently on Tubi, all the Nemesis movies popped up there except for part 4, so I was able to rewatch Nemesis 2 and 3 again, which I hadn't watched probably since the late 90s. So it's been a lot of years since I've seen them. Now, I'm going to get into, I'll just explain a little bit about the plot of the first movie. I won't explain all of it, but just kind of give a quick rundown of what the movie's about. So Nemesis 2 picks up after Nemesis 1, but it's further into the future. And we have an opening text that explains what happened to Oliver Grunner's character, Alex Rain, from the first movie. He went on to fight in the Cyborg Wars, and he fought for quite some time, but he ended up getting killed. And the tide started to turn in the favor of the cyborgs against the humans. So what the humans did is they created a genetically enhanced superhuman. And this was going to be their way of finally turning the tide and defeating the cyborgs. But to protect this advanced human, which was still a baby, they sent the superhuman back in time with her mother to Africa. And when she gets there, there's this war going on with these rebels and some other, I think, governmental power. That part of the subplot's not really explained. And then this baby is named Alex Rain, named after the original Alex Rain in honor of him. So Alex Rain's mother is killed off in a gunfight with the rebels, and then the baby is left hidden in a bush, and then is found by an African tribe and raised up and grown up to be Sue Price. So Sue Price is going to be now the main character going on forward. So she is like the greatest warrior of this tribe because she's a superhuman. She's faster, stronger, and all this kind of stuff because she's been genetically enhanced. But she doesn't know where she came from, who her mother was, anything like that. All that's been kept secret by the tribe. Then all this gets disrupted because the cyborgs send back through time a machine. I don't know if it's a machine or if it's supposed to be a cyborg or what it is, but it's a thing called a Nebula. And its mission is to hunt down Alex Rain, analyze her genetically enhanced DNA, and then kill her, and then return to the future. So then that's basically the gist of the movie. This thing shows up, starts killing everyone, and then she has to find a way to defeat it. So that's the gist of the film. So now, this movie is not nearly so good as the first Nebula one, but it's still not too bad. And Sue Price, it almost seems like she was born to be in these movies. She just kind of fits in there for some reason. I can't really explain why, but she just does. And she does a pretty good, solid job. She's not a martial artist like Oliver Grunner was, but the gunfights and the fight scene in this movie isn't bad. They're pretty solid. Some of the things I actually liked about this movie is I actually kind of like the character design or the look of Sue Price, like with all the beads and like the more tribal gear she had on, and her hair was all like braided and stuff like that. Almost kind of looked like dreadlocks. So visually, she looked pretty cool. And the other thing I liked about this movie was the design, the suit of the Nebula itself. I think they did a pretty good job on that for a guy in a suit. But one thing that kind of annoyed me is they obscured the way it looked for most of the movie with this weird blurring special effect for some reason, which I don't really know why they did it. Because it wasn't like a thing that camouflaged the Nebula, or it wasn't even like a force field because it could still get shot. So I don't know what the point of that was. But it just covered up an actually pretty good looking suit for this movie. And the other thing I enjoyed about this movie was she finds a weapon inside one of the time ships that her and her mother came back in time through, and it's a knife, and it's actually a pretty cool looking prop. It's a knife that it's quite long, and it has a laser sighting on it, so you can actually target something and throw the knife at it, and the blade will glow like orange hot. So then you can use that to target whatever you want and throw the knife at it, and the knife will just go right to it and hit it and go into it or blow it up or whatever it does. So it was actually a pretty cool weapon. I like that weapon. Now, some of the acting is pretty cheesy, stuff like that. The other thing I liked, one of the things I liked but didn't like, I liked her friend that was in the African tribe that helped her out. But what I didn't like is they just like kind of killed his character off for no reason. And I thought it would make the movie a bit more uplifting if he actually survived right till the end of the movie and helped her destroy the nebula, and he actually lived. So I actually like that character. So now, would I give this movie a watch, or should you? Obviously, I watched the movie, but should you give this movie a watch? I definitely would. These movies, these 90s films, sci-fi films, and this is one of them, they have this weird quality that I know I can't really explain, but I really like to watch these kind of movies, and I've watched a lot of them, like cheesy B sci-fi movies from the 80s and 90s. So yes, definitely, if you like the first one, you'll probably like this one as well. Although you can tell that with the second one, the budget has gone down from the first one, now that they decided to take it in this direction. So now let's talk about Nemesis 3 Time Lapse. So now this movie is a direct continuation to the second one because they're both filmed back to back or at the same time. It was actually meant to be one movie. But one thing I noticed is the budget seems to be smaller on this one than even the second one. Just because in the first one, the fights are better, the gun fights are better, it's more action. And when they fire their guns, it looks like their guns are actually firing like blanks. So it looks like they're actually firing their the guns. They're actually firing blanks, I mean to say. Where in this one, when they fire their guns, it's just done with like really bad CGI. There is no actual blanks. That's how, and it looks terrible. It doesn't look good at all. And some of the other things, like some of the cyborgs in this one, they have like these. They keep putting these weird glowing green eye effects on there that don't look good at all, and there really wasn't no need to it or need for it. So it really, I don't know. I think it hurt the movie, to be honest. Now the plot is basically the same plot as the first one. They just send another Nebula back in time to do the exact same thing. This time, the Nebula is a more advanced model, and it's actually played by Tim Thomerson. He's been in a slew of B movies. He was actually the main bad guy from the first Nemesis film. So now he returns to play bad guy again, and he hams it up a lot in this movie. So he actually makes up for a lot of the bad stuff in this movie because it's so funny to watch him. And the thing about this movie, because the story I didn't find as good, because the story, it's one of those stories where it starts off at the end of the story and then kind of works backwards. So then the rest of the movie, so you know how the movie's going to end. You're just watching to see how it got to that point, the rest of the movie. That's how this movie is. And what I like about this movie is all the side characters are kind of amusing to watch. She ends up teaming up with this rebel guy who is like this total greaseball, sleazy guy who is trying to sleep with her or come on to her and stuff like that. And he actually plays like a very similar character, and it's the same actor in Nemesis Part 4. So that character was pretty amusing to watch. And then she ends up teaming up with this guy who he was part of the rebels. He actually is still in with the rebels, but he had a brain injury, and so now he's slow and stuff like that. So he had brain damage, so he's not the guy he was. So they just got him doing all these menial tasks. But then Sue Price kind of ends up saving him from these guys because they're always bullying him and stuff like that. And then he kind of becomes her sidekick for the rest of the movie. So it's her, the slow guy, and the former sleazy rebel guy. They kind of like are a team throughout this movie. And the other thing is funny is the two cyborg women that come back through time with the new Nebula model. They're played by a couple of female bodybuilders as well. And every time they do something evil or talk about doing something evil, they look at each other and laugh and stuff like that. So that's kind of amusing. So now the movie ends with a setup for Nebula 4. And it's implied that the character of Alex Rain goes into the future and ends up fighting in a cyborg war. But if you watch Nemesis 4, it's like we're going to go this way with the story. But when they came time to make Nemesis 4, they changed their minds. Okay, no, we don't want to, the movie we set up in part 3, we don't want to do that movie anymore. We're going to do something completely different. So the movies don't line up at all story-wise, 3 and 4. So this one isn't as good as part 2, but where they're kind of linked and they were filmed back to back, it's almost kind of like a given. If you watch part 2, you probably should watch part 3. But I would say watch them both. They're kind of fun sci-fi B schlock, so I would definitely give them a watch. Now, one thing I have to say about these movies is it's very apparent, and it makes me wonder, well, two things about these movies. It makes me wonder if Albert Pyun, the director, actually knows what a cyborg is. Because I kind of get the impression that these things are more like AIs and not cyborgs. And it's almost like people making the films don't know the difference between a robot, an android, and a cyborg. They just kind of use those terms interchangeably. That's kind of the impression I get when I watch these movies. Because the war that humans are fighting, it's almost like they're fighting it more against like an AI instead of actual cyborgs. Because even some of the humans have cybernetic implants. And then the whole source of the conflict, or why they're even fighting, is not really ever made clear in these movies. And the other thing about these films is it's quite clear that the director, Albert Pyun, has some sort of a fetish for female bodybuilders. Because there's a lot of them in this movie. All the women in part 3 here, they're all female bodybuilders. So he must have some, because these films have like this strong, or not even, well, it's not strong, I guess, but there is this femdom theme going through there, or this BDSM theme going throughout these movies, because you have these female bodybuilders that are pounding guys and killing guys and stuff like that in these movies, and it makes me wonder if that's something the director's into. It has to be, because it gets really laid on thick in part 4. We're to the point where part 4 is almost not even a sci-fi film. It's almost more like a soft porn fetish film, where these two, you kind of have those themes and elements in there, but they're more they're not as out there. Now, the other thing, which I think they should have done with these movies when they started making them, instead of going, because it seems like the movies consistently go down in quality. It would have been cool to see them do the reverse, and they actually went up in quality instead of down. Instead of like decreasing the budget and not bringing back Oliver Grunner, I think they should have like upped the budget and brought Oliver Grunner back and went that way instead of going the reverse way. Or if they were going to go with a bit of a lower budget like they did in these ones, and they're going to go with this fandom stuff and the female bodybuilders and all that, then really lean hard into it and really up the action and up the violence and even up the gore. So you have these like cybernetically enhanced female bodybuilders just tearing their way through slews and slews of guys or whatever. If you're going to go that direction, just commit to the bit and go all the way. But I would definitely give these two films a watch. And because they just have that old school 90s B-movie sci-fi quality to them that I think when I watch sci-fi movies now that are B-movies, that quality is gone. It's definitely gone from Nemesis 5, which I'm going to do a separate video on and talk about that movie. Definitely give these two one. Give both of these films a watch if you like 90s science fiction B-movies. Definitely watch this. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.